Hello, dear listeners, and welcome to Sound of History. This is episode number 10. And in this episode, I'm going to pick up where I left off in the previous episode when I was talking about Black artists living and working and touring in Europe around the turn of the last century. And if you haven't listened to that episode, I can recommend that you do that as well before listening to this one. Or listen to this one first, maybe, and then go back and listen to the previous one. And as I have found out, there was quite a lot of Black artists living and working and having successful careers in Europe around the end of the 1800s, beginning of the 1900s, and before the First World War. And I'm not just talking about European countries like the UK and France. I'm talking about parts of Europe like Scandinavia and Russia and Eastern Europe. And I want to shine some light on these forgotten artists and give them the recognition that they deserve. When reading about pop culture in the early 1900s, one phenomenon keeps popping up, the cakewalk. So before we go any further in this episode, let's get to the bottom of cakewalk. The cakewalk was a full-blown craze, and it spread from the US to Europe and was often taught or performed by African American entertainers for white audiences. The dance was born on southern plantations sometime in the 1800s. It was a part of gatherings among enslaved Black Americans, and the cakewalk began as a literal cakewalk, a prize walk, like a contest where couples competed in dance for a cake at the end. It was a partner dance. It was slow, graceful, and exaggerated and comical. The dancers were mimicking the stiff, formal dances of white slave owners and making fun of their high society, stale waltzes and postures. And many plantation owners didn't realize that they were being mocked. They thought the slaves were just putting on a show, and awarded the winners with a cake. After the Civil War, the cakewalk moved from plantations to performance stages, and it started to take off, and it was soon hitting the mainstream. It was first being seen in minstrel shows, where it was danced only by men, and later on Broadway, where women joined in and the steps got flashier, funnier, and more flamboyant. And over time, the cakewalk made its way into American pop culture. Even author Mark Twain wrote about it in the 1890s, describing a grand competition where contestants strutted their stuff in their finest clothes, while judges awarded a cake to the most stylish couple. One of the Black performers responsible for introducing the cakewalk to European audiences was the dancer and ever so fashionable Dora Dean. She won over countless fans at the turn of the last century in Europe, and Germans flocked to see the elegant performer and her new style, the cakewalk. Dora Dean was born in 1872 in a tiny town of just 850 or so residents in Kentucky. And at 18 years old, she decided to try her luck in the city of St. Louis. There she joined a Black vaudeville group, and she also met Charles Johnson, who was a self-taught dancer 2 years older than her, and the two married in 1893. Dean and Johnson then took the cakewalk to New York, and their performances helped launch the dance into the national spotlight as touring vaudeville shows carried it across the US. But they didn't stop there. they also brought the cakewalk into the world of high culture when they performed at Broadway. And not only were they likely the first Black performers on a Broadway stage, they were also the first to showcase an art form rooted in African American culture on such a powerful platform. The couple was famous for their elegant costumes, which kind of goes back to the satirical origins of the dance to mimic the upper class and the high fancy schmancy society. And Johnson's lilac, dusky pink, or pearl grey suits were always perfectly tailored, and Dean's dresses were elaborate and always paired with precious jewelry. And the pair always invested their earnings into more costumes and nice clothing for the next production. And it was a strategy that was so successful that by 1901, they had booked their first performance abroad in Germany at Berlin's Wintergarten Theater. They stayed for a month in Berlin where they were performing at the Wintergarten, and after that they began a years-long European tour. And the pair, with their luxurious clothing and costumes and innovative music and exaggerated dance movements, became an overnight sensation. And they paved the way for many other Black American performers who would visit Berlin in the years that followed. And soon, Cakewalk's influence in Europe was everywhere. In variety shows and dance halls, in advertising and design, and in music and art.
Happy Georgia Transmiti, played by Gilmore Sands, for Columbia Phonograph Company of New York and Paris.
just to give you an example how it could sound during these cakewalks, that was at a Georgia camp meeting written in 1897 by Carrie Mills, and it is one of the most famous early cakewalks. And here it was performed by Gilmore's band a few years later. Despite the growing competition, Johnson and Dean remained sought-after performers, and they returned to Berlin many times during their years of touring. And Dora Dean, in particular, was enormously popular. She became known as the Black Venus. One of her biggest fans was the German artist Ernst Heilemann, and he painted her life-size portrait in 1901. She even impressed European royalty. Queen Marie of Romania gifted her a gemstone brooch, and King Edward VII invited her to perform in London. Her beauty also inspired a number of songs, like Dora Dean, the sweetest gal you ever seen, written in 1896 by performer and composer Bert Williams, who I will talk more about shortly. And Dora Dean's Sister, written in 1902 by one of ragtime's greatest, Joseph Lamb. With the start of the First World War, Johnson and Dean, who had broken up a short time before, now left Europe, and Dean was then making a living as a film actress until one day when she and Johnson got back together again, both as a couple and as dance partners in the mid-1930s. And their audience was now usually of an older generation, those who still remember the pair as the groundbreaking, internationally famous duo. And the couple, both being unsatisfied with being retired, were planning yet another comeback when Dean suddenly passed away in 1949 at the age of 77. If you enjoy listening to this podcast, if it brings you happiness, entertainment, distraction, or any other form of positive emotion, please support Sound of History by liking, commenting, following, subscribing, recommending this podcast to help me reach more listeners. Thank you so much for your help. Now back to the episode. In 1903, a Broadway show with the name In the Homie premieres. The name of the Broadway show is In the Homie, not In the Homie, Dahomey. Let's set the scene. Broadway is still basically a whites-only club, and black performers are boxed into minstrel shows, shuffling and mugging through painful caricatures written by, well, not them. But then comes In the Homie. It's the first full-length Broadway musical written and performed by African Americans at a major venue. And not just any performers, we're talking comedy royalty. Bert Williams and George Walker. Yes, it's the same Bert Williams that had written the song dedicated to Dora Dean's beauty a few years prior. And a few years after this Broadway show, in 1906, he would go on and record a song with the title Nobody, which became a huge hit. And it became Bert Williams' signature theme.
When life seems full of clouds and rain, and I am full of nothing and pain, who soothes my thumping, bumping brain? Nobody. When winter comes with snow and sleet, and me with hunger and 5 cents. Go ahead and get something to eat. Go on, why don't you, huh? Nobody. No, I ain't never done nothing to nobody. No, I ain't never got nothing from nobody no time. So until I get something from somebody sometime, I'll never do nothing for nobody no time. When I was in that railroad wreck and thought I'd cashed in my last check, who took the engine off my neck? Nobody. One time when things was looking bright, I started to whittle on a stick one night. Who cried out, "Stop now, that's dynamite"? Not a soul. I ain't never done nothing to nobody. I ain't never got nothing from nobody no time. Oh, until I get something from somebody sometime. Oh, I'll never do nothing for nobody no time.
Bert Williams and George Walker were two of the most prominent figures of the minstrel era, and they were a famous comedy duo. The two met in 1893 in San Francisco, and they formed a vaudeville act together. And they decided to switch the vaudeville stereotypes and play against their appearances, because Bert had lighter skin expressing some European ancestry, and by the expectations of the time, he would typically be typecast to perform as the refined gentleman in comedy routines. And George Walker had darker skin, and because of that, he would be expected to play the fool. But they realized that they were much funnier when they reversed their roles, so Walker became the straight man, dressed a little too high fashion and spending all the money he could borrow or trick out of the lazy, careless, unlucky Williams. And Williams became the lovable, bumbling underdog, forever down on his luck and always out of cash. And their chemistry together was electric, and their timing was flawless, and the crowd loved it. A brief summary of the plot of In the Homie. We've got two small-time hustlers from Boston, Shylock Homestead and Rareback Pinkerton, played by Bert Williams and George Walker. They stumble on a pot of gold somehow and decide that the best use of this wealth is to start a colony in Africa, specifically Dahomey, now known as Benin. And their idea is to gather a bunch of struggling Black Americans, sail across the Atlantic, and set up a promised land. But first, they must go on a side quest, and they head to Florida. And along the way, somewhere, Pinkerton discovers that Homestead's sitting on some major dough and schemes to weasel his way in. And they bicker, they backstab, and this being a musical, dance a lot. And eventually, they end up in Dahomey with a bunch of colonists and naturally 3 barrels of whiskey. And the show ends with a big old cakewalk. Another actor who was part of In the Homie was Pete Hampton, and he was an acclaimed performer in his own right and would later go on to relocate to the UK and make Europe his stage.
My hard luck started when I was born, these so the old folks say. And that hard luck's been my best friend up to this very day. When I was young, my mama's friend to find a name to try. They named me after Papa, and the same day Papa died. I'm a Jonah, I am a Jonah man. My family for many a years would look at me and then shed tears. Why am I unlucky? I sure can't understand. But I'm a good, substantial, full-fledged, real, first-class Jonah man. One day my brother went down the street and he fell in a coal hole. He sued the man what owned the place, and he got 10,000 coals. I said to myself, that's easy. So I jumped in the same coal hole, broke both my legs and sprained my wrist, and got 6 months for stealing coal. I'm a Jonah, I am a Jonah man. If money grew on trees, there ain't no doubt I'd stay blind till the crop run out. Why am I unlucky? I sure can't understand. But I'm a good, substantial, full-fledged, real, first-class Jonah man. I'm a Jonah, I am a Jonah man. If it rained down soup from morn till dark, instead of a spoon, I'd have a fork. Why am I unlucky? I sure can't understand. But I'm a good, substantial, full-fledged, real, first-class Jonah man.
That was Pete Hampton singing I'm a Jonah Man, which is a song from the show In the Homie. In the Homie became a big hit, and it was so popular that the all-black cast also went on tour in the UK in 1903. And while on tour in the UK, Pete Hampton fell in love and married fellow troupe member Laura Bowman. And after the original company broke up, Hampton and Bowman, instead of joining the new one, decided to form a quartet named the Darktown Entertainers with 2 other singers with the names Will Garland and Fred Douglas. And the quartet toured in many European countries, including Germany, Hungary, Austria, France, Switzerland, and Russia. And they were playing and performing a mix of music styles, but the rising tensions in Europe forced them to bail and head back to England, where the group eventually disbanded. Hampton then eventually bought a house in England in 1910 and made it his home. But with the outbreak of the First World War, the British government forced all immigrants to leave the country, and Hampton had to return to America. And he never fully recovered from the illness he gained while on the boat returning to the United States, and he died 3 years after arriving back in the US in 1916.
Oh, the Derby song, oh, them golden slippers, sung by Mr. Pete Hampton, Edison Bell Record. The old man's trying to sing one of them old songs. You can't sing, Pap. Wake me up, boy. Wake me up. Stop that, I tell you. Oh, my golden slippers, I'm laid away. Till the don't fake the wham till my wedding day. And my long tail coat that I love so well, I will wear up in the chariot in the morning. And my long white robe that I bought last June, I was going to get changed, came it fits too soon. And the old gray horse that I used to drive, I will hitch into the chariot in the morning. Oh, them golden slippers, oh, them golden slippers, golden slippers are wine to wear, because they look so neat. Hallelujah, oh, them golden slippers, oh, them golden slippers are wine to wear, walk the golden street. You used to have? Come here, you and Mandy. I want you to sing this song for your pappy.
I don't know the words.
Shut up, Brad. Don't you tell me you don't know them words.
Don't
Stop that laughing, I tell you. I'll spank you in a minute. Sing. Oh, them golden slippers. Oh, them golden slippers. Golden slippers are swag to wear. Because they look so neat. Hallelujah. Oh, them golden slippers. Oh, them golden slippers. Golden slippers are swag to wear. Wear the golden street.
Oh, that's rotten.
Stop that, I tell you, boy.
He's rotten.
Stop that, I tell you. Stop that, stop. You can't stop. When you come here, I'll stop you, sir.
Oh, don't do that. No, don't do that.
I'll stop you. Well, them pajamas you got on. Stop that.
In his performances, he played the 5-string banjo and the harmonica, and Hampton's musical performances are a mix of different musical genres. And although he wasn't a blues musician in the general sense, he is regarded as an important blues harmonica pioneer because he had a very distinctive way of playing the harmonica, which can be traced to early examples of a harmonica technique known as bending, which is then used widely in later styles of blues music. During his career in Europe, he made over 150 recordings, mostly recorded in the UK and Germany. And his recordings are important not only for their musical content, but also for their historical value, as they provide some insights into the presence and influence of African American performers in early 20th century Europe.
Bill Bailey, sung by Pete Hampton, Lambert Record. On one summer's day, when the sun was shining fine, the lady love of old Bill Bailey was a hang clothes on the line in her backyard, and a weeping heart. She might have been no brakesman, he took and throwed her down, bellowing like a prune-fed calf with a big gang hanging around, and to that crowd she yelled out loud, "Won't you come home, Bill Bailey? Won't you come home?" He yelled the whole day long. "I'll do the cooking, darling. I'll pay the rent. I knows I've done you wrong. Don't you remember that rainy evening when I throwed you out with nothing but a pine tooth song?
knows I'll to blame. Well, ain't that a shame? Bill Bailey, won't you please come home? Bill drove by the door in an automobile. A great big diamond coaching footman, hear that big wind squeal. He's all alone. Bill heard a groan. She hollered through the door. Bill Bailey, is you so? Stop a minute, won't you listen to me? Wanna see you anymore? Bill winked his eye as he heard her cry. Won't you come home, Bill Bailey? Won't you come home? He yelled the whole day long. I'll do the cooking, darling, I'll pay the rent. I knows I've done you wrong. But remember that rainy evening when I throwed you out? Nothing but a fine tooth comb. I knows I was to blame. Well, ain't that a shame? Bill Bailey, won't you please come home?
Bill Bailey, Won't You Please Come Home, originally written by Huey Cannon and covered by many. That was all I had for this episode, and I will now say goodbye and until next time.